I was finalizing the details for a honeymoon package to Santorini when my phone buzzed with a new booking request. The couple wanted overwater villas in the Maldives, champagne on arrival, and a sunset cruise. Nothing unusual for my agency. But then I saw the names. James Carter. Melissa Carter. I froze, the cursor blinking on my screen like it knew the history between us. I hadn't spoken to them in almost 8 years. Not since the summer they left for a vacation without me, without even asking if I wanted to come. The irony was sharp enough to taste. Now, here I was, the owner of Aurora Travels, one of the most in-demand boutique travel agencies in New York, holding the power to make or break their perfect trip. I leaned back in my leather chair, the soft creak echoing in my quiet office. Sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, warming the silk of my cream blouse. A faint trace of vanilla hand cream lingered on my fingers as I scrolled through their request. The professional in me said I should treat them like any other clients. The woman they once dismissed wanted something else. I clicked open their profile and whispered to myself, well, this is going to be interesting. 8 years ago, I was 24, still living in a small apartment in Queens, trying to figure out what I wanted from life. I worked part-time at a bookstore, barely making enough to cover rent, and spent most weekends at my brother James's place. He and his wife, Melissa, had the kind of life I thought was out of my reach. Designer furniture, spontaneous trips, Instagram feeds full of sunsets and champagne glasses. That summer, I overheard them talking about their annual vacation. Italy. 2 weeks. Amalfi Coast. I had never been anywhere outside the US, but I dreamed about Italy. The cobblestone streets, the smell of espresso drifting from tiny cafes. When I hinted at joining, Melissa laughed softly, like I'd told a sweet but impossible joke. Oh, honey, she said, there's just no space in the villa. And, besides, it's really expensive. We wouldn't want you to feel out of place. James didn't meet my eyes. He just mumbled something about maybe next time and went back to scrolling his phone. I smiled like it didn't hurt, but inside, it felt like someone had pressed a fist into my chest. That night, I cried into my pillow, embarrassed at how much their rejection stung. A week later, my grandmother, who had always been my quiet cheerleader, came over for tea. She noticed my puffy eyes and didn't pry, just reached into her old leather bag and pulled out a small, weathered globe. This belonged to your grandfather, she said, her fingers brushing over the faded countries. He used to spin it, close his eyes, and promise me we'd see wherever his finger landed. We didn't get to see it all, but you still can. I placed it on my nightstand that night, the continents bathed in the glow of my bedside lamp. I spun it once, eyes closed, and my finger landed on Greece. I didn't know when or how, but I decided I would see it for myself, without asking for anyone's permission. That was the night I stopped waiting for someone to take me on vacation and started planning a life where I could take myself anywhere. The first step wasn't glamorous. I answered a Craigslist ad for a receptionist at a tiny, cluttered travel agency in Midtown. The office smelled faintly of instant coffee and printer ink, and the cracked blinds rattled whenever the subway rumbled beneath us. But to me, it felt like the first doorway to the world. My boss, Evelyn Price, was in her late 50s, a silver-haired powerhouse who had been booking trips since before online booking even existed. She could tell you the best gelato in Florence, the quietest beach in Phuket, and exactly which airlines would lose your luggage. She also didn't believe in coddling anyone. You want to do more than answer phones, kid? She said on my first week. Then learn everything. And I mean everything: booking systems, hotel contracts, visa rules. If you mess up, own it, fix it, and don't cry in my office. I took her advice to heart. I stayed after hours watching online tutorials, reading travel blogs, memorizing airport codes. My social life shrank to nothing, but I didn't care. I was building something, though I wasn't sure what exactly yet. My first small win came when a last-minute booking fell through, and Evelyn was ready to send the client away. I jumped in, suggested an alternative, and ended up saving the deal. She didn't say thank you, but the next day, she tossed a guidebook onto my desk.
"You'll need this," she said.
"You're coming to the Travel Expo with me." From there, things accelerated. I started handling more clients, making connections with hotel managers, tour guides, and airline reps. I learned how to negotiate room upgrades, secure impossible reservations, and smooth over travel disasters with charm and speed. After 5 years, I'd saved enough to rent a small office and launch Aurora Travels. I positioned it as a boutique agency specializing in curated luxury experiences, the kind Instagram influencers brag about, but most people don't know how to book themselves. It wasn't easy. My first year, I nearly closed the business twice. There were months I didn't pay myself at all. But there were also moments that kept me going. A honeymoon couple sending me photos from a private beach in Bora Bora, a solo traveler emailing to say I'd given her the courage to see the world, a family calling me their travel fairy godmother. I didn't tell James or Melissa. I kept my personal life vague on social media. A coffee cup here, a city skyline there. If they noticed I was traveling more, they probably assumed I was tagging along on someone else's trips. The truth was, I was building a career they couldn't even imagine, and I wasn't ready for them to know. Not yet. It was a Tuesday morning in early spring when the glass door of Aurora Travels swung open. The soft chime echoed through the office as I looked up from my laptop. 2 people stepped inside. Even before my brain caught up, my body knew. The tilt of his head. The perfume she wore. James and Melissa Carter. They didn't notice me at first. My receptionist, Natalie, greeted them with her usual warmth. "Good morning. How can we help you today?" Melissa glanced around, her eyes sweeping over the framed photographs of exotic beaches, the polished walnut counters, the massive world map studded with tiny gold pins. "We're looking to plan a big trip," she said. "Something special. We've been to most of Europe, so we're thinking maybe the Maldives or Bora Bora this time." Natalie nodded. "Of course. Let me just grab our manager." I took my time. I closed my laptop, smoothed the silk of my blouse, and walked out from my private office at the back. "Good morning," I said, my voice even. "I'm the owner. How can I help you?" James blinked, recognition dawning slowly. "Emma?" Melissa's smile faltered for just a second before she recovered.
Wow.
"You work here?" I let the pause stretch a moment before answering. "I don't just work here. I run Aurora Travels." The silence that followed was almost tangible. James glanced around again, as if the space might suddenly rearrange itself to make more sense. Melissa's perfectly glossed lips pressed together. "This is impressive," James said finally. "We had no idea you were in the travel business." "I suppose there's a lot you don't know," I replied lightly, moving behind the counter. I pulled up a blank itinerary form. "So, tell me, what kind of vacation are we talking about?" They stumbled over the details at first, throwing out names of luxury resorts and high-end experiences. I nodded, jotting notes, my pen moving with professional ease. The entire time, I could feel their eyes scanning the office, the subtle scent of sandalwood, the perfectly aligned travel brochures, the photographs of me shaking hands with hotel directors and tour operators. When they finally paused, I closed the folder gently. "You know," I said, meeting their eyes, "it's funny. 8 years ago, I couldn't even get a seat in your vacation plans. And now you're sitting here asking me to design yours." Melissa's face flushed. James shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tightening. "That's not fair," Melissa started. "We didn't mean." I held up a hand. "It doesn't matter. What matters is whether we can work together now. I run a very exclusive agency. Not everyone gets on my client list." For a moment, they just stared at me. And for the first time in years, I saw something in their expressions I'd never seen before. Not dismissal, not superiority. Respect. Maybe even a little awe. I leaned back slightly, letting the weight of the moment settle. "So," I said, "shall we see if we can make this work?" I folded my hands on the counter and looked at them the way I looked at any high-maintenance client. Calm, steady, assessing. "In my agency," I said, "we don't just book trips. We curate experiences. And I only take on clients who understand the value of what I do." Melissa's chin lifted slightly. "Of course. We're happy to pay whatever it takes." I shook my head. Money isn't the only currency here. That caught them both off guard. I let the silence linger before continuing. There are a few conditions before I'll agree to take you on. First, respect. That means no last-minute cancellations, no undermining my team, and no treating this agency like a vending machine for luxury. We put our heart into every itinerary, and we expect that to be recognized. James glanced at Melissa, then back at me. Fair enough. Second, I said, leaning in slightly, acknowledgement. You may not remember that summer in 2017 as vividly as I do, but I do remember. And I'm not looking for an apology unless you actually mean it. Melissa shifted uncomfortably. We were thoughtless, she said after a moment. I'm sorry, Emma. Honestly, I didn't realize how it came across. I studied her for a beat. Her voice sounded different, softer. Maybe she did mean it. Third, I continued, if I plan this trip for you, you'll send me one postcard from wherever you go. Not a text, not an Instagram story, a handwritten postcard. You'll tell me the best thing you saw and one thing you learned. Melissa blinked. That's unusual. It's how I work, I said simply. They exchanged a look, then both nodded. All right, James said. We can do that. I opened their client file and began typing.
Good.
Because when I do take someone on, I don't hold back. You'll get the kind of trip you'll talk about for the rest of your lives. As I worked through the details, private seaplane transfers, reef dives, candlelit dinners on the beach, I could feel the dynamic had shifted completely. They were no longer the gatekeepers deciding if I was worthy of their company. I was the one setting the terms, holding the power. And it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about choice. I could have turned them away. Instead, I'd set the boundaries I needed, and they'd accepted them. 3 weeks later, a cream-colored postcard arrived in the mail. The photo on the front was of a turquoise lagoon framed by swaying palm trees. On the back, written in Melissa's looping script, were just a few lines. We thought of you when we watched the sunset from our villa. It was the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. You were right, some places change you. Thank you. I stood in my office, the afternoon light spilling across my desk, and ran my thumb over the card's glossy edge. Next to my computer sat the old, weathered globe my grandmother had given me all those years ago. Its faded colors and chipped stand were a sharp contrast to the sleek, modern world I'd built around it. I reached out and spun it gently. The continents blurred into a swirl of blues and greens until it slowed, and my finger landed on a new place, Morocco. I smiled. James and Melissa had kept their word. They treated my team with respect, honored their bookings, and even sent small gifts from their trip. I didn't fool myself into thinking the past had vanished, but I could feel that something had shifted. Sometimes the people who once shut a door in your face come back, not because you waited for them, but because you built a bigger, better door, one they now have to knock on. I placed the postcard beside the globe, a small reminder that even the deepest wounds can leave behind something unexpected, perspective. Standing there, I thought about that summer in 2017, about the lump in my throat and the sting of being left behind. And then I thought about now, the woman who had carved her own path, one destination at a time. As I locked the office for the night, I looked back at the globe and whispered. They refused to take me on vacation. Now they book their trips through my agency. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a punchline. It felt like closure.